terms with the fact that you may have to say goodbye to your baby very soon after they're born. It's really, really hard to do. And I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. He had this head full of curly black hair, which was so shocking to us. He had a baby. He had a baby. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Brittany, and I post a new video every Friday about faith, health, intentional living, and motherhood. My daughter Nora is almost 6 months old, and I've been wanting to write out her birth story for a while and film it for you guys. But I don't know if you'll understand what I mean when I talk about some of the emotions that I felt during Nora's labor and delivery, unless I start with Asher, my 2-year-old. It was kind of unexpected. He was 9 weeks premature and had some health issues, and so there was a lot to work through with his birth. And I kind of want to start with that so you can understand where I'm coming from. I want to preface this by saying that I do talk about birth. I talk about the nitty-gritty details. So if you can't handle that, maybe check out one of the other videos I have down below. And Nora's birth is not as intense, and I'll be sharing that one soon. Okay, I'll start from the very beginning. My husband and I have been married for about 7 months. We found out we were expecting on Thanksgiving Day, and the pregnancy had gone perfectly. I had a little bit of morning sickness in the first trimester. Besides that, I was doing great. I was, very healthy. All my blood work was coming back great. I did have a good amount of energy. I felt pretty good. It was perfect. Of course, like most first-time moms, I read about everything about birth. I read everything about babies, and I was super prepared for a natural, unmedicated delivery. It was really important to me. We were actually even planning a home birth, and so we were working with both a midwife and a doctor at my OB office, and so we had double care. Everything was incredible. His growth was right on track. His 20-week ultrasound was perfect. We found out he was a boy. He had all his fingers and toes, and his organs looked great. Yeah, we were just expecting a very uncomplicated delivery. So I was 28 weeks pregnant, and I was watching my 2 younger siblings. My husband and I was watching our 2 younger siblings because my parents were out of town with my 2 other sisters, and I had gone to a doctor's appointment that morning. Everything looked great. I had some very light chiropractic work done, very, very light. My doctor was very gentle. I'd never seen a chiropractor before. And we came home, and I was feeling kind of tired and just wasn't feeling very well. And I laid down on the couch and was feeling a little crampy, which I had experienced in my pregnancy is normal. It's normal to feel some uterine discomfort. But I started noticing it was coming in waves. I had read about contractions and read what they felt like, and I realized that I should probably call my midwife because I was only 28 weeks pregnant. So I called her, and she was like, "Oh, how long are they apart?" And I had one of the waves. I was on the phone with her, and she goes, "Oh, you are making contraction sounds. Like, you need to call your OB and go in right now." So, we called someone to watch my siblings, and we went straight to the hospital, which was about 45 minutes away. And on the way there, the contractions kind of died down to where I was just feeling 1 or 2. And by the time we were actually in the office, they had gone away completely. As I described them to my doctor, she was like, "Yep, those are definitely contractions." And she wanted an ultrasound just to make sure everything was okay. So, and they confirmed that I was not dilated, and that my water hadn't broken, nothing like that. I had just had some contractions. So she wanted an ultrasound to make sure everything was okay. So she takes us back to the ultrasound room, and they show us that he has a bunch of hair. That was the first thing she noticed. And then she goes, "Okay, so I'm just going to talk to the doctor, and she'll come back and talk to you guys." And that had never happened before. We had always seen the doctor back in the room and not in the ultrasound room. And so she came in, and she said, "So Asher has some fluid in his abdomen, some free fluid, all this black here," and she shows an ultrasound that shouldn't be there. So she's like, "We are going to refer you to a specialist." She's going to make some phone calls. It could be a very worrying symptom. It could be a sign of a lot of other issues, and that we were going to see a specialist as soon as possible. So she left us in the room, and I'm just trying to stay positive, but I'm kind of in shock because everything had been perfect until now. And she comes back, and she said, "We have an appointment for you tomorrow in Columbus," which is about 2 to 2.5 hours away from us. She said, "We'll keep in touch." So we went home, and I Googled ascites on unborn babies, and it was very scary. It was very scary, and it could be a sign for many terrible things with very bad outcomes. I reached out to some friends and family and was asking for prayers, and we headed to Columbus next day. And there's a lot of other information. I won't get into everything because there's a lot of information. But basically, his kidneys weren't functioning what they should, and it looked like his bladder had ruptured. He said that he could have a few really bad issues, and they did some genetic testing. We actually didn't get that back until after he was born. But one of the biggest ones is really long medical term that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. Basically, he wouldn't have an airway, and he would never be able to take his first breath. So, or he would only live for an average of like 3 months is what babies would live with this issue. And that was the worst, but there were several others almost as bad as that, and they seen his chance of survival as very minimal, or that he would have major deficits. So it was really hard to come to terms with we may lose him or lose him very soon after he's born. And so that was really difficult. It was definitely a time where we had lots of people praying for us. Coming to terms with the fact that you may have to say goodbye to your baby very soon after they're born is really hard to do. And I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. But we did come to terms with that, and we were just trying to surround his life with joy, and just having joy in every moment we had with him, and just knowing that no matter what happened, that God is good and he was going to bring us through, and he had a plan. And they were just going to try to keep him in me as long as possible. Our plan was weekly visits to the OB and stress tests and constant monitoring. So we went home. The next week, so it was like 29 weeks, I started having some contractions again, and it was at night. I went to the hospital around 11 p.m. The doctor there was horrible. The only bad experience I've had at the hospital. She was horrible. She didn't talk us through anything. And I was having contractions. She gave me some medicine. They stopped. She sent me home. And I was in pain through the night. The next morning I woke up and we went right back to the doctor. At that point I was like 2 centimeters dilated and my cervix had thinned, so they shipped me off to Columbus in an ambulance. It was a very traumatic ride. I was given medication, made me feel very sick. I was having contractions while laying flat out on a gurney in the ambulance, and like I said, it's a 2-hour trip. It was difficult. I stayed in the hospital for a week trying to get the contractions under control, and basically my maternal fetal specialist said that I was still having contractions, but they weren't changing my cervix anymore, and that he felt comfortable sending me home on some medication, and said that I had an irritable uterus and I would be uncomfortable for the rest of my pregnancy, and we'd still have weekly visits in Columbus and weekly visits at my local office. We went home on a Saturday, and we stopped for dinner on the way home. I went to church on Sunday, but I was still having to take my medication every 4 hours. I was constantly feeling like kind of crampy and contracty, but they said that was normal and just keep taking the medication. Monday, we decided we should really get things ready because we had nothing ready for him. Nothing. We were waiting until our baby shower at 31 weeks to buy any of the big stuff to see what we got, and kind of so we could just, we thought we'd have 2 more months after that to get what we really needed. So we literally had nothing for him. Our bedroom, we had a 1-bedroom house, so we hadn't even set anything up. So we decided that day we should go ahead and get things done, and he decided to get the bedroom painted while I supervised from a chair in the corner. That whole day I was very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. And my husband was very concerned, but I said, this is what Dr. Matt, which was a maternal fetal specialist, said would happen, so I'm just going to hang out. And I had an appointment for 9 a.m. Tuesday morning. All Monday night I did not sleep. I remember laying over my yoga ball like this, trying to get some sleep. I think I was able to get like 2 hours total in like little 20-minute chunks by sitting straight up on the couch or laying over my yoga ball. And I just remember the sun coming up Tuesday morning and being so ready to go to the doctor. And on the ride there, I was like making little like sounds with each contraction-y pain I had. And my husband was very concerned, and I was making a grocery list and planning on going to the library. And I guess I was just kind of anxiously making plans because I needed to not focus on my concerns. And my husband's like, honey, you're going back to Columbus. It's going to happen. And I just didn't want to accept that. So when we got there, I was 3 centimeters and had bulging waters, which means my my waters hadn't broken, but they were very close to it. And they shipped me upstairs, labor and delivery to prepare to be taken to Columbus again by ambulance. And it was very traumatic. So I had to have a catheter, which if you've ever had one, you know how awful that is. And then they put me on medication, magnesium, which they had used the week before when I got taken to Columbus, but this time they had a higher dosage. And I remember just feeling really sick, like I couldn't breathe. And I was focusing on my husband's face, and everything started blacking out. And I told him, I said, get the nurse, I can't breathe. And he ran and got the nurse, and I heard, turn the magnesium down, as I started kind of like fading out. And I actually came back to, and I just had like a reaction to the medication, and it was very scary. And my husband had gotten very scared. But we went to Columbus, and they put me back on the labor delivery floor and just monitored me. I was having very strong contractions. So I was having contractions on and off. Around Thursday, they started dying down on the monitor, although I was still feeling them. Friday, I was still feeling them, but they weren't on the monitor at all. And they had exhausted all medication. So they decided to send me to the floor where you can't go home, but you're not in active labor. So you just kind of just stay in the hospital. So my parents decided to head home because they had been with us up there the entire time, and we were going to be moved to another room. And I remember eating dinner and watching like a rerun of America's Got Talent in the hospital room, and just feeling really sick to my stomach. And I just didn't want to eat. And I was just really tired and emotional. Just take me over to the other floor where you're supposed to stay and wait to have your baby. And it was a very, very tiny room. Very tiny. They could barely fit the wheelchair in there to get me into the bed. And as soon as the nurse left, I started crying. And my husband's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. But I did know. I knew that it was just thinking of staying in that room for weeks and weeks, worrying about the baby. And it was just I had no window. I had one little tiny window. And it just seemed really depressing. And I was just kind of losing it. I'd held it together for a long time, and I was just kind of losing it. And so it was about 9:30. I started getting some really bad back pain, and it was just really annoying. It also like this gnawing feeling on my spine, and I just could not get comfortable. I was getting up and out of the bed, in and out of the chair, and I finally asked my husband, I said, can you just go warm up my rice bags, like little heat bags, and let me try to rest? And he said, I think you should really tell the nurse. And I was like, no, I just want to go to sleep, so you just go heat up my rice bags. So he went, and I finally kind of got comfortable, and the nurses came in for shift change around 10 o'clock, and they asked me if anything had changed, and, Chance, does this look like? You need to tell them. So I'm like, I've got back pain, and so I started freaking out, and they're like, well, do you feel pressure? And I said, I felt pressure for 2 weeks, but yeah, I guess I'm feeling pretty bad pressure tonight. So they run out of the room, and I looked at my husband and I said, they better hurry up, because I want to go to sleep. Because this has already happened multiple times. The resident that had been seeing me through the whole thing came in, and she looked just as tired as I was and wanted to go home. She was like, okay, Brittany, let's do one last cervical check. So she pops her head up, she's like, you are 7 centimeters, and your water's about to break. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, we're going to have a baby. And I just was kind of filled with joy there at that moment, just excited and ready to have my baby. And even through all the scary stuff, I was just ready to have him. So I said, call my mom. So my husband called her, and we raced over to labor and delivery. We got into labor and delivery about 10:30. And I just remember feeling joy because we had gone through so much unknown. And there was so much unknown until he was born. And we were just going to see our baby. And I would just focus on that. I just want to surround his birth and delivery with joy. I was happy with the fact that I got to move around for the first time in weeks, and just freely move in the yoga ball, and to bounce, and to do squats, because I was in active labor and I could do those things. Because we were trying to prevent him from being born before that. A family friend came to stay with me until mom and dad got there, and it was just a really good feeling in the room. We had worship music playing. We were just laughing and talking between contractions. I was even singing along with the worship music at one point, and it was just a really cool experience. And there was just a lot of peace and joy in the room. And around 2 a.m., I went to the bathroom, and when I stood up, I had like a little pop and trickle down my leg, and I was like, I think my water broke. But I forgot to mention I had polyhydramnios, which means like my stomach was huge. I had way too much fluid and amniotic fluid. So they said when my water broke, it'd be pretty dramatic. And this was nuts. It was a little anticlimactic. And my nurse, that had been like super calm and chill and chirpy, came running in and said, sit down in the bed right now. And I was like, okay then. So I walled over to the bed, sat down. She's like, your baby's head is not engaged. So like birth canal, baby's head. And they were worried about the umbilical cord in between the baby's head and the birth canal, which can cut off oxygen to the baby, blood flow. So, which is really concerning. So she was in the right there. And the resident came in, same resident that had checked me before, to finish breaking my water. And when she did, I felt this loud pop, and it hurt badly. And I kind of looked at her and said, what did you do? She said, well, your baby's head is engaged now. So, that. So after that, labor got much more intense, much more painful, and I was really still swaying through the contractions and still staying calm, but it was definitely more challenging. Around 3, they had gotten so intense, and they checked me, and I was 10 centimeters. So Chance went to gown up for the OR because he had to be born in an OR with emergency equipment and an NICU team. All in all, there was like 50 people in the room. And so at that point, I felt this crazy pressure. And if you've had a baby, you know what that feels like. And that is like the worst part of birth for me, is that pressure you feel, that ring of fire. So I turned myself around and held onto the back of the hospital bed on my hands and knees, and it hit me that it's gonna hurt me so tear every time. It hit me that he was safe inside of me, but when he was born, we didn't know if he'd ever take that first breath. And that was just a bit more than I could bear. And so I kind of lost it and started screaming. And I screamed and I screamed, and I was just like in my own world of fear. And because Chance was still gowning up, my mom got down on my face. She's like, Brittany, you need to sing. And I just remember thinking, like, are you insane? I am in active labor, and it is terrifying, and I'm not singing. She's like, you need to sing. And I'd sung through those tough weeks to get me through some of those really bad contractions I'd experienced. So I started singing Amazing Grace. It was like the most caveman guttural version ever. But it got me through, and it really brought me that peace. And my mom said that, looking back, like, there's not a dry eye in the room. It was not because the song was pretty, because it wasn't. It was kind of scary sounding, actually. But there was that peace, and I really felt the Lord's Spirit there. And so they rushed me off to the OR, and I had that peace back, and I was just like, let's get this done. Let's just have this baby and take care of him and just get to the next obstacle and just tackle it. I got back to the OR, and I was just kind of like giving them a hard time. I don't know if I almost got kind of sassy. I was just like, why is this table so small? Why are my legs in stirrups? And if you know me, you know that's so far from my personality. I'm just like really, really friendly to people. I'm like super nice. Can't help it. And so that was not like me at all. The doctor told me to take a deep breath and then push with everything in me and hold my breath, which was completely opposite of everything I heard in my birthing books. But I really wanted to get the baby out, and I trusted her, and so I did it. But that I wasn't breathing enough, and so I started getting lightheaded, and Chance had to remind me to breathe. At one point, the resident said, you can feel his head, and I reached down and felt his head. It really gave me that push to finish having him, to really just push him out. And I did, and at 3:56 a.m., he was born, and they laid him on my chest, and he had this head full of curly black hair, which was so shocking to us. And I just said to Chance, like, we had a baby. This is our baby. But he wasn't making any sounds, and I said, "Is he okay?" And I started rubbing his back and patting his back, and he let out a little cry, just a little one. And they whisked him away and took him across the room, and the NICU team started working on him. I was having some issues. My placenta didn't want to detach and come out, so they were working with that, and they let him say goodbye to me, and Chance went with him up to the NICU, and I was in the OR for another hour while they took care of all that and gave me stitches. They took me back to my room, and I was there, and I had to have some pain medicine for the issues I had afterwards, so I was a little groggy, but I worked hard to stay awake until they brought him by my room. And then they brought him by my room, and I got to get a first picture of him, and then they took him to Nationwide Children's Hospital, and I had to stay at the hospital I was at, which was Riverside. So that was tough, but Chance was with him the whole time. And so Chance went with him, and I was there, and I think the hardest part was just staying in the recovery room and hearing the babies cry down the hall, and I was just by myself and with the breast pump, and that was hard. I started kind of losing that uplifted, joyful spirit at that point because I just hadn't seen my baby in a couple of days, and that was really tough. But he didn't have any of the issues that they thought he had. He just had a posterior urethral valve, so basically the end of his bladder is this little valve that's not supposed to be there, and they had to remove that around a month old with surgery, and he did so well. He was in the NICU for a couple months and got to come home, and now he just has a little bit of kidney damage that he's on medication for, and some lung damage, but he's doing really well. He's way healthier and beat all the odds that everyone had for him, and he's our little miracle baby, and he's just the most amazing little toddler. He is so energetic and so observant. He's just a really cool kid. Thank you guys so much for joining me for my story. It was actually very therapeutic to talk it out with you guys and to share it. And I'll be sharing Nora's soon, and hers was a completely different experience. She was a healthy full-term baby, but I learned a few different things about myself during her birth, and just worked through a few things. And I'm really excited to share that with you guys here very soon. So if you want to see that, like this video and subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified when I get that uploaded, and you'll be one of the first to see it. So thank you guys so much again for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.